I guess the therapist should have handed me my balls on the way out. That's what I kept thinking as I lay in bed at 2 a.m, staring at the ceiling fan making its lazy circles, listening to Naomi's breath beside me. Too steady, too practiced. The kind of breathing you do when you're pretending to sleep, but you're really just waiting for the other person to give up and stop existing for a while. Everyone says, "You're not good enough for me, Jake." She'd said it so casually during our couples therapy session, like she was commenting on the weather or the coffee being too bitter. Dr. Morrison had actually flinched. I saw it, this tiny crack in her professional mask, like even she couldn't believe Naomi had just dropped that bomb in a room that cost us $200 an hour. "Everyone?" I'd asked, keeping my voice level. Years of dealing with entitled clients at Harper Logistics had taught me how to swallow rage and smile. "That's interesting. Who's everyone exactly?" Naomi had waved her hand, those perfectly manicured nails catching the light. "You know, my parents, Ava, people at work. They just think we're different." "Different how?" "Jake, don't make this harder than it needs to be." She'd turned to Dr. Morrison then, playing the victim. "See? This is what I mean. He gets defensive about everything." That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of sleeping in the same bed with a woman who'd essentially told me I wasn't worth the air I breathed. 3 weeks of coming home to a house that felt like a museum. Beautiful, expensive, and completely devoid of warmth. I'm Jake Harper, 32 years old. I run the logistics department at a mid-sized shipping company in Portland, Maine. Not glamorous, but honest work that pays well enough. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom after Dad left. Worked my way through community college, then state school. Got my degree in supply chain management while working nights at a warehouse. Built myself from nothing. Naomi grew up in a mansion in Cape Elizabeth with an ocean view and a trust fund. Her father, Edward, made his money in real estate development back in the 80s. Old money, or at least old enough that they could pretend the stink of new money had worn off. We met 5 years ago at a charity gala my company sponsored. I was there representing the blue-collar workforce, basically, the token guy in the rented tux who could talk about logistics solutions without sounding like a complete idiot. She was there because her father's name was on the building. She'd been beautiful. Still is, objectively. Long dark hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that makes men stupid. But that night, she'd also been funny, self-deprecating. She'd made jokes about her own privilege, rolled her eyes at the pretentious wine selection, asked me real questions about my work like she actually cared. I fell hard. Married her 2 years later in a wedding that cost more than my first car, my college education, and probably my childhood home combined. Her parents paid for everything, which should have been my first warning sign. The ceiling fan kept spinning. Naomi's fake sleep breathing continued. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Probably Mick, my best friend and co-worker, sending me another meme at an inappropriate hour. Mick had been my lifeline these past few weeks, the only person I could talk to about the slow-motion car crash my marriage had become. I reached for the phone, careful not to disturb Naomi. But it wasn't Mick. It was a notification from our shared tablet, the one Naomi used for recipes she never cooked and online shopping she did too much of. We'd set it up with link notifications when we first got married, back when we actually trusted each other, back when sharing everything seemed romantic instead of stupid. The notification was from a messaging app, not the regular one. One of those private apps people use when they don't want their messages showing up in the usual places. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Last night was incredible. You taste like expensive mistakes and I'm addicted." The message was from someone named Liam, with a heart emoji next to his name in her contacts. The preview text was enough. I didn't need to read more. I set the phone down very carefully. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt weirdly calm, like I'd been waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, I could finally stop wondering and start doing. Naomi stirred beside me, rolling over. In the dim light from the window, I could see her face. Peaceful, beautiful, completely untroubled by guilt or conscience. Everyone says you're not good enough for me. Yeah. Well, we'd see about that. I didn't confront her that night. That's what the old Jake would have done, the doormat. Jake, the let's talk about our feelings. Jake. The new Jake, the one who'd been slowly crystallizing over 3 weeks of casual emotional abuse, knew better. Instead, I got up at 5:30 like always, went for my usual run through the neighborhood, came back and showered. Naomi was still asleep when I left for work at 7. I kissed her forehead out of habit, and she mumbled something that might have been love you, or might have been leave me alone. Hard to tell anymore. The office was quiet when I arrived. Harper Logistics occupied a converted warehouse on the industrial side of Portland, all exposed brick and high ceilings that the owner Tom Harper, no relation despite my last name, thought made us look authentically blue-collar but aspirational, whatever that meant. My office was small but mine. Window overlooking the loading docks. Desk I'd assembled myself from IKEA. Coffee maker that had seen better days but still worked. Photos on the wall from better times. Me and Naomi on our honeymoon in Italy, back when she still looked at me like I mattered. I'd need to take those down soon. Mick showed up at 8, carrying 2 large coffees and a bag of donuts from the place down the street. Mick was my age, built like he still played college football even though he never did, with a beard that his wife, Sarah, was constantly threatening to shave off in his sleep. "You look like hell," he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. "Rough night?" "Found out Naomi's cheating on me." Mick choked on his coffee. "Jesus, Jake, you want to maybe ease into that conversation?" Not really. I took one of the coffees, drank it black and bitter. Saw messages on her tablet. Some guy named Liam. Pretty explicit stuff. Damn. Mick set down his coffee, suddenly serious. "You sure? I mean, could it be you taste like expensive mistakes and I'm addicted." That's a direct quote. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screenshot I'd taken. "There's more where that came from." Mick read it, his face darkening. "That's... wow. Okay. So what are you going to do?" "Honestly, I don't know yet." I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling. Different ceiling, same feeling of everything spinning out of control. Part of me wants to burn her whole world down. Part of me just wants to disappear and let her figure out her own mess. The Jake I know doesn't do either of those things, Mick said carefully. The Jake I know tries to fix things, talks it out, gives people second chances they don't deserve. Yeah, well, maybe that Jake is tired of being not good enough. I told him about the therapy session, about Naomi's casual cruelty, about 3 weeks of sleeping next to someone who looked at me like I was a mistake she couldn't quite figure out how to erase. Mick listened, getting angrier with every sentence. "That's messed up, man. Even if she was unhappy, you don't say that stuff. You definitely don't cheat." "Her parents never liked me," I said. "Her friends barely tolerate me. I'm the guy from the wrong side of the tracks who got lucky, right? The charity case who should be grateful their princess even looked at him." "Stop!" Mick's voice was sharp. "You're not a charity case. You built yourself from nothing. You're a good guy, a hard worker, and you've been nothing but decent to her. If she can't see that, that's her problem, not yours." "Doesn't feel that way." "I know, but here's what you're going to do." Mick leaned forward, all business now. "You're going to document everything. Every message, every late night, every suspicious thing. You're going to protect yourself financially, separate accounts, all that. And then you're going to decide if you want to save this marriage or end it, but you're going to do it smart, not emotional. He was right. I knew he was right. The problem was the emotional part of me, the part that had loved Naomi, that had believed in us, was screaming for blood. I spent the morning working or pretending to. Logistics is all about moving pieces from point A to point B efficiently. Turned out marriage breakdown followed similar principles. I made a list. 1. Document the affair, screenshots, dates, times. 2. Separate finances, open new account, redirect my paycheck. 3. Consult lawyer, don't tell Naomi. 4. Change locks. Legally tricky, research needed. 5. Prepare exit strategy. It felt clinical, cold, not like me at all. But maybe that was the point. Maybe being me was what got me here in the first place. My phone buzzed. Text from Naomi. Having lunch with Ava today. Don't wait up for dinner. Might be late. Might be late. Right. Because she was definitely having lunch with Ava and definitely not sneaking off to see Liam. I texted back, no problem. Have fun. 2 minutes later, another notification from the tablet. Naomi to Liam. He bought it. See you at 6? Liam's response. Your place or mine? Naomi. Yours. Less risky. I took screenshots of everything. Backed them up to 3 different cloud services. Sent copies to my personal email. This was evidence, and evidence had a way of disappearing if you weren't careful. At lunch, instead of eating, I drove to my bank and opened a new checking account. Transferred half of our joint savings, my half, the half I'd contributed from 5 years of paychecks. Left her half alone. I wasn't a thief, just cautious. Then I called Detective Lane. Rick Lane and I went to high school together. He'd been the quarterback. I'd been the guy who helped him pass calculus. We'd stayed in touch over the years, not close but friendly. He'd become a cop, worked his way up to detective. Good guy. Honest. Jake Harper, he said when he answered. Haven't heard from you in a while. What's up? Need some advice? Personal situation? I'm listening. I gave him the basics, the affair, the evidence, my concerns about what I could and couldn't do legally. Rick listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. Okay, he said when I finished. Here's the deal. Maine's a no-fault divorce state, so the affair doesn't matter much legally. But documentation is still smart for your own peace of mind. As for the house, if both your names are on the deed, you can't just kick her out. But you can leave, and you can ask her to leave. Just can't force it. What about changing the locks? Tricky. If she has legal right to be there, changing locks could be considered illegal eviction. Don't do it without talking to a lawyer first. Great. Look, Jake, I know this sucks, but don't do anything stupid. Don't confront the guy. Don't trash her stuff. Don't make yourself look like the bad guy here. Document, separate, and let the lawyers handle it. What if I want him to know I know? Rick sighed. Then you're not calling me for legal advice. You're calling me for permission to do something dumb. And I can't give you that, buddy. Keep your nose clean. We hung up. Good advice, all of it. Sensible, mature. Everything I should do. But that screaming part of me, the part that wanted blood, wasn't interested in sensible. I drove back to the office and buried myself in work until 6. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I drove to Naomi's lover's apartment. Finding the address was easy. Naomi had it saved in her GPS history. Liam Foster lived in a new high-rise downtown, the kind with a doorman and a gym and probably a rooftop pool. The kind of place that screamed tech startup money or trust fund baby. I parked across the street and waited. At 6:15, Naomi's car pulled into the garage. I watched her get out, check her makeup in the side mirror, and walk into the building like she owned it. I sat there for 2 hours, watching the lit windows, imagining what was happening up there. My wife, another man, everything I'd built crumbling while I sat in a cold car eating gas station snacks. At 8:30, I went home. Our home. The house we'd bought together 3 years ago, the one I'd spent weekends fixing up, painting, making perfect for her. I walked through every room, seeing it with new eyes. The expensive couch she'd insisted on, the artwork her mother had given us, the kitchen gadgets she'd bought and never used. All of it felt like a museum to a marriage that never really existed. In my workshop, the garage I'd converted into a space for my woodworking hobby. I sat on my workbench and tried to figure out what came next. Naomi came home at 10, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She kissed my cheek, said she'd had a great time with Ava, asked about my day. I said it was fine. We went to bed. She fell asleep immediately, the sleep of someone with a clear conscience or no conscience at all. I stared at the ceiling fan and planned my next move. 3 days later, Naomi's parents invited us to dinner. This wasn't unusual. Edward and Margot liked to summon us to their mansion once a month for what they called family time, and what I called reminders that I'll never be good enough for their daughter. We should cancel, I told Naomi that morning. I've got a lot of work. Jake, we can't cancel. Mom's been planning this for weeks. She was doing her makeup in the bathroom mirror, that careful precision she used for important events. Besides, they want to talk about the summer house. The summer house. Right. Edward and Margot owned a place in Bar Harbor that they were thinking of selling. Naomi had been lobbying for us to buy it, never mind that it cost more than I'd make in 10 years. I don't want to buy a summer house. We've talked about this. Her voice had that edge now, the one that said I was being difficult. It's a good investment, and it would be nice to have a place to get away. Get away from what? She turned to look at me, mascara wand frozen in midair. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. I grabbed my jacket. I'll be home by 6. We can drive over together. Jake. She caught my arm as I headed for the door. Is something wrong? You've been weird lately. I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I'd married, the woman who was sleeping with someone else while planning our future like nothing was wrong. I'm fine, I said, just stressed about work. She bought it because she wanted to buy it, because acknowledging that something was wrong would require her to care, and caring would interfere with whatever she had going on with Liam. Work was hell. I couldn't focus, kept making mistakes, snapped at people who didn't deserve it. Mick pulled me aside at lunch. You need to deal with this, he said. You're falling apart. I'm handling it. No, you're avoiding it. There's a difference. He handed me a business card. My cousin's a divorce lawyer. Good one. Call her. I took the card, shoved it in my pocket. I'm not ready for lawyers yet. When will you be ready? When you catch them in bed? When she empties your bank account? When her father sues you for something ridiculous? Mick shook his head. You're playing defense, man. You need to go on offense. He was right. I knew he was right, but there was something I needed to do first. At 6, I picked up Naomi, and we drove to Cape Elizabeth in tense silence. The mansion looked the same as always, imposing, cold, beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful without being warm. Edward answered the door himself, which was unusual. Usually Margot did the greeting while Edward held court in his study. Jake, Naomi. He kissed his daughter's cheek, shook my hand with the grip of someone who wanted you to know he could crush you if he wanted. Come in. We're having cocktails in the sunroom. The sunroom was all windows and white furniture and plants that probably cost more than my car. Margot was already there, perfectly dressed, perfectly coiffed, perfectly judgmental. "Jake, darling," she said, offering her cheek for a kiss I didn't want to give. "You look tired. Are you sleeping well?" "Fine, thanks." "He's been working too hard," Naomi said, settling onto the couch like a princess on a throne. "You know how he is. Always pushing himself." "Admirable," Edward said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "Hard work is important, though knowing when to delegate is equally valuable." Here we go, I thought. The subtle digs disguised as life advice. We made small talk over drinks. They asked about my work, barely listening to my answers. Asked about Naomi's job at the jewelry store, praising every mundane detail like she'd cured cancer. Asked about our plans for the holidays, for the summer, for the rest of our lives. Then Edward dropped the bomb. "We've decided not to sell the Bar Harbor house," he said. "Instead, we'd like to give it to you, as a gift." Naomi gasped. "Dad, really? Oh my God, that's amazing." I set down my drink carefully. "That's very generous, Edward, but we can't accept." Silence. The kind of silence that happens when you've said something so unexpected that people need a moment to process it. "I'm sorry?" Margot's voice was ice. "You can't accept? It's too much. We couldn't possibly—" "Jake." Naomi's hand was on my arm, squeezing hard. "Can we talk about this privately?" "There's nothing to talk about. I'm not comfortable accepting a house as a gift." "Why not?" Edward leaned forward, his expression hardening. "It's a family property. Your family." "Am I?" The words were out before I could stop them. "Because I've spent 5 years being reminded that I'm not quite good enough for this family. That I'm the guy from the wrong side who got lucky. So, forgive me if I'm not comfortable being in debt to you for $1 million property." Naomi's face went pale. "Jake, what are you doing?" "I'm being honest. Something we should all try more often." Margot stood up, her cocktail glass shaking slightly. "I think you should leave." "Gladly." I stood, looked at Naomi. "You coming?" She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "No, I'm staying." "Suit yourself." I walked out, got in my car, drove home with my hands shaking and my heart pounding and a strange sense of liberation flooding through me. I'd just burned a bridge. Maybe the wrong bridge. Maybe at the wrong time. But God, it felt good. An hour later, my phone exploded with texts. "Naomi." "What the hell was that?" "Naomi. You embarrassed me in front of my parents." "Naomi. We need to talk when I get home." "Ava. Heard you had a meltdown at dinner. Classy." Unknown number. "This is Edward. You owe my daughter an apology." I turned off my phone and went to my workshop, sat at my bench, stared at the half-finished bookshelves I'd been building for Naomi's birthday. Then I took a sledgehammer and destroyed them. It felt better than it should have. Naomi didn't come home that night. I didn't call to ask where she was. I knew anyway, either at her parents' mansion or at Liam's apartment, playing the victim, getting sympathy for being married to such an unreasonable man. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I called the lawyer Mick had recommended. Her name was Patricia Brennan, and she had the kind of voice that suggested she'd heard every variation of marital disaster and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Mr. Harper," she said after I'd explained the situation, "let me be clear about a few things. Maine is a no-fault divorce state. Your wife's affair, while morally reprehensible, won't significantly impact the divorce proceedings. What matters is asset division, which will be split equitably, not necessarily equally, but fairly. What about the house?" Is both your names on the deed? Yes. Then it's a marital asset. You'll either need to sell it and split the proceeds, or one of you buys out the other's share. Given that you've been married 5 years and you said she didn't contribute to the down payment, you might have a case for a larger share, but it's not guaranteed. And her parents' money? The gifts they've given us? Gifts to both of you are marital property. Gifts specifically to her are hers alone. You'll need documentation to prove which is which. We talked for an hour. She was thorough, professional, and expensive. By the end of the call, I'd retained her services and felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. This was really happening. My marriage was ending. I went to work and tried to focus. Failed miserably. Mick kept checking on me, bringing coffee, running interference when I was too distracted to deal with clients. "You did the right thing," he said at lunch. "Calling the lawyer, and standing up to her parents. That took guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." He bit into his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "Sarah wants to know if you need a place to crash. We've got the spare room." "I'm not leaving my house. Even if Naomi comes back? Especially if Naomi comes back." She did come back, at 4 p.m, while I was still at work. I knew because Mrs. Tilling, our 70-year-old neighbor who missed nothing, called me immediately. "Jake, dear," she said in her quavery voice, "I don't mean to pry, but Naomi just pulled up with a moving truck, a small one, but still, I thought you should know." I thanked her and drove home at speeds that would have gotten me pulled over if Rick Lane had been on patrol. The moving truck was indeed small, one of those U-Haul vans you can rent by the hour. Naomi was carrying boxes out of the house, loading them with the help of someone I didn't recognize. Not Liam. A woman, probably a friend from work. I parked in the driveway, blocking them in. Naomi saw me and froze, box in hand. "Jake, what are you doing? What does it look like? I'm moving out." "You don't get to just take our stuff. It's my stuff, Jake. My clothes, my books, my things." She set the box down, faced me with her hands on her hips. "After last night, I think it's pretty clear this isn't working. You're leaving me because I stood up to your parents? I'm leaving you because you're impossible." Her voice rose, sharp and cutting. "You're angry all the time. You're paranoid. You're making scenes at family dinners. I can't do this anymore." The friend, I could see her name tag now, Jessica, looked uncomfortable. "Maybe I should wait in the truck." "Good idea," I said. Jessica scurried off. Naomi and I stood in the driveway, facing each other like gunslingers at high noon. "You want to talk about impossible?" I kept my voice level. "Let's talk about how you've been cheating on me with some guy named Liam. Let's talk about how you told our therapist, I'm not good enough for you. Let's talk about 5 years of your family treating me like hired help." Her face went white, then red. "You went through my phone? Your tablet, the one we share, the one you were stupid enough to link to your secret messaging app. That's a violation of privacy. That's rich, coming from someone who's been violating our marriage vows." I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots. "You taste like expensive mistakes? Really? That's the kind of guy you're throwing away our marriage for?" She grabbed for the phone. I held it out of reach. "Give me that." "No. This is evidence. My lawyer has copies." "Your lawyer?" Her voice cracked. "You hired a lawyer? What did you think was going to happen, Naomi? You'd just move out, take half our stuff, and I'd wave goodbye? We're married. There's a process." "I want a divorce." "Yeah, I figured that out. File the papers. My lawyer will respond." She stared at me, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or fear. Then it hardened into anger. "You're going to regret this," she said. "My father has lawyers, good ones. They'll destroy you. Let them try." She grabbed the box, loaded it into the truck, and drove off with Jessica without another word. I watched them go, then went inside to assess the damage. She'd taken her clothes, her jewelry, some books, and a few pieces of art. Nothing major, nothing I cared about. But the house felt different now, emptier, colder. The ghost of our marriage haunting every room. I called Mick. "She moved out," I said. "Damn, you okay?" "I don't know. Maybe. It feels like I should be more upset. Maybe you've been mourning this marriage longer than you realized. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd been saying goodbye to Naomi for weeks, months even, and just hadn't admitted it to myself. That night, I changed the locks anyway. Patricia had said not to, but Naomi had voluntarily left. I wasn't evicting her. I was securing my property. If her lawyers wanted to make an issue of it, let them. I also went through the house and documented everything that remained. Photos of every room, every piece of furniture, every item of value. If this was going to get ugly, and it was definitely going to get ugly, I wanted proof of what I had and what she'd taken. At midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Harper?" A man's voice, smooth and professional. "This is David Rothstein. I represent Edward and Margot Thornton, and by extension, their daughter Naomi." It's midnight. I apologize for the late hour, but my clients wanted me to reach out immediately. They're prepared to make you a very generous offer to resolve this situation quickly and quietly. "What kind of offer?" $50,000, cash, in exchange for an uncontested divorce, no claim to marital assets beyond your personal belongings, and a signed NDA regarding the family. I laughed. Actually laughed. "You're joking. I assure you, I'm quite serious. This is a very generous..." "Tell your clients to go to hell. And tell Naomi if she wants a divorce, she can file the papers like everyone else. I'm not taking a payoff to disappear quietly." I hung up, turned off my phone, poured myself a drink. The war had officially begun. The next week was a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and increasingly hostile text messages. Naomi filed for divorce. I responded through Patricia, who advised me to keep all communication formal and documented. But the real damage wasn't happening in courtrooms or lawyers' offices. It was happening in the social circles Naomi and I had shared, the friends we'd made together, the couples we'd hung out with, the carefully constructed life we'd built. Ava struck first. She called me on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Jake, honey, I just wanted to check on you. Naomi told me what happened. I'm so sorry you're going through this." "I'm fine, Ava. It's just, well, some of us have been talking, and we're worried about you. The way you've been acting lately, the paranoia, the accusations. Have you thought about seeing someone? A therapist, maybe?" I understood immediately what was happening. Naomi was controlling the narrative. I was the crazy one, the paranoid husband who'd accused his innocent wife of cheating and blown up his marriage over nothing. "Did she tell you about Liam?" I asked. Silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Tell me, Ava, how long have you known she was cheating on me?" "Jake, I think you need help. Seriously. This conspiracy theory thing isn't healthy." "It's not a conspiracy theory when I have screenshots of their messages. Want me to send them to you? Or maybe to your husband? I bet Derek would be interested to know what his wife's best friend has been up to." She hung up. 20 minutes later, I got a text from Derek. "Dude, leave Ava alone. Whatever's going on with you and Naomi, don't drag us into it." Then came the others. Tom and Jennifer, who we'd gone to dinner with every month for 3 years. We think it's best if we take some space from this situation. Brad and Melissa, who we'd vacationed with in Florida. We don't want to take sides, so we're stepping back from both of you. One by one, the friends we'd shared chose Naomi, or chose to disappear entirely. Either way, I was alone. Mick was furious. "They're cowards," he said over beers at Murphy's, the dive bar near our office. "Every single one of them. They know Naomi's family has money and connections, so they're protecting themselves." Can't blame them. The hell I can't. You're supposed to stand by your friends, not abandon them when things get hard. Sandy, the bartender, leaned over the bar. She was in her 50s, had worked at Murphy's for 20 years, and knew everyone's business before they did. "I heard about your situation," she said. "Rough deal. You know Naomi?" "Seen her around. She used to come in here sometimes, with her girlfriends slumming it with the regular people." Sandy's tone made it clear what she thought of that. "Saw her here 2 weeks ago, actually. With a guy. Not you." My stomach dropped. What did he look like? Tall, dark hair, expensive watch. They were pretty cozy in the corner booth. "You're sure?" "Honey, I've been serving drinks in this bar for 2 decades. I know cozy when I see it." She refilled my beer without asking. "On the house. You look like you need it." I did need it. And I needed more than that. I needed to stop playing defense and start playing offense, like Mick had said. So I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus. No, wait. I'm not using that name. His name was Gary. Gary Sutton. Former cop, now made his living following cheating spouses and insurance fraudsters. He came recommended by Patricia, who said he was discreet and thorough. "What do you want to know?" Gary asked when we met at a coffee shop downtown. "Everything. Where she goes, who she sees, what she does. I want documentation." "You already have proof of the affair. What more do you need?" "I need to know who else knew, who helped her, who's been lying to me." I leaned forward. "I need ammunition." Gary studied me for a long moment. "You sure about this? Sometimes what you find out makes things worse, not better." "I'm sure." He took the case. $500 a day plus expenses, worth every penny. While Gary did his work, I did mine. I started documenting everything, not just the affair, but the financial stuff. The credit cards in both our names that Naomi had maxed out. The joint account she'd been draining for personal expenses. The gifts from her parents that she'd claimed were for both of us, but had only ever benefited her. Patricia was impressed. "This is good," she said during our next meeting. "Very thorough. If we can prove she was financially irresponsible and deceptive, we can argue for a larger share of the marital assets." "What about the house? You want to keep it?" I thought about that. The house had been our dream, once. Now, it was just a building full of bad memories, but it was also mine, in a way that transcended ownership. I'd fixed it, improved it, made it a home. "Yeah," I said, "I want to keep it." "Then we'll make that our goal. But be prepared. Naomi's lawyers are going to fight hard. Her father's funding this, and he has deep pockets. Let him spend it. I'm not backing down." Gary called me a week later. "Got something you need to see?" We met at the same coffee shop. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Naomi and Liam at restaurants, at his apartment, at a hotel in Portsmouth. Timestamps, locations, everything documented, but there was more. "Your wife's been meeting with her friend Ava," Gary said. "A lot, and not just for coffee. They've been strategizing." "Strategizing what?" "How to maximize her divorce settlement, how to make you look bad, how to turn your mutual friends against you." He pulled out more photos. Naomi and Ava at a wine bar, heads close together, papers spread on the table between them. That's a list of assets. She's planning to claim half of everything, including your retirement account and the business. I don't own the business. No, but you have stock options, right? She's going after those too. I felt sick. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a calculated takedown. There's more, Gary said quietly. Ava's husband, Derek, he's been helping Liam with some business deal. They're all connected. This whole thing, the affair, the divorce, the friends turning on you, it's coordinated. I stared at the photos, at the evidence of betrayal upon betrayal. These people I'd trusted, who I'd thought were my friends, had been plotting against me. What do you want to do? Gary asked. I looked up at him, and I felt something shift inside me. The last remnants of the old Jake, the nice guy, the doormat, the one who played by the rules, died right there in that coffee shop. I want to burn their whole world down, I said. Gary smiled. Now, you're talking my language. Revenge, I learned, is best served with documentation and a complete lack of mercy. I started with Liam. Gary had given me everything I needed. Liam's address, his schedule, his routines. Liam Foster, it turned out, was exactly what I'd suspected. A trust fund baby playing entrepreneur. His tech startup was funded entirely by his family's money. He'd never actually built anything, never actually succeeded at anything. He was a professional failure coasting on inherited wealth and good looks. I found his car in the parking garage of his apartment building on a Wednesday night. A Tesla, because of course it was. I didn't key it or slash the tires. Nothing illegal. Nothing that could come back to me. Instead, I took a tube of lipstick, one of Naomi's, actually, that she'd left behind, and wrote on his windshield, "Your girlfriend's husband says hi." Then I went to the security office of the building and, using a voicemail spoofing app, left a message claiming to be from the Portland Police Department, investigating a fraud case involving Liam Foster. Could they please preserve any security footage from the past month? I knew it wouldn't lead anywhere. I wasn't actually committing fraud, and the real cops would never follow up. But Liam didn't know that, and the security guard would definitely mention it to him. Sure enough, Gary reported back the next day that Liam had spent 2 hours in the security office, panicking, demanding to see footage, calling his lawyer. "He's rattled," Gary said. "Good work." But I wasn't done with Liam. Not even close. Using the information Gary had gathered, I created a detailed timeline of the affair. Dates, locations, expenses. Then I sent it anonymously to Liam's father, a stern old money type who Gary said was already disappointed in his son's lack of ambition. The message was simple. Thought you should know what your son's been up to with someone else's wife. Might affect that trust fund. I didn't know if it would work. But 2 days later, Liam's Tesla disappeared from the parking garage, replaced by a 10-year-old Honda. Gary confirmed that Liam's father had cut off his allowance pending a serious conversation about responsibility. One down. Next was Ava. Ava had been Naomi's best friend since college, her partner in crime, her enabler. She'd known about the affair from the beginning. Gary's surveillance had proved that. She'd helped Naomi plan her secret meetups, had provided alibis, had actively worked to turn our mutual friends against me. Ava's weakness was her image. She presented herself as the perfect wife, the perfect friend, the perfect socialite. Her Instagram was a carefully curated collection of brunch photos, charity events, and humble brags about her blessed life. What she didn't know was that Gary had photographed her having lunch with Tom, as in Tom from Tom and Jennifer, our former couple friends. Not just lunch. A very intimate lunch, with hand-holding and a kiss in the parking lot. I sent the photos to Derek, Ava's husband, from an anonymous email account. Subject line: Thought you should know. Then I waited. The explosion happened within 24 hours. Derek confronted Ava. Ava denied everything, then admitted everything, then blamed Derek for being emotionally unavailable. Derek filed for divorce and, in a fit of rage, posted the photos on Facebook before his friends could talk him down. Ava's perfect image shattered. Her Instagram went dark. Her friends, the same ones who'd abandoned me, turned on her with the viciousness of people who'd been waiting for an excuse, and Naomi, by association, got splashed with the same mud. Because everyone knew they were best friends, everyone knew they did everything together. If Ava was a cheater and a liar, what did that say about Naomi? 2 down. The mutual friends came next. I didn't go after all of them, only the ones who'd actively worked against me. Tom and Jennifer, who'd spread rumors about my paranoia. Brad and Melissa, who'd told people I was unstable and possibly dangerous. For Tom and Jennifer, I simply let Derek know that Tom had been the one Ava was cheating with. Let them deal with the fallout of that friendship ending. For Brad and Melissa, I did something more subtle. I knew Brad was up for a promotion at his job. He'd talked about it endlessly at dinners. I also knew, thanks to Gary's research, that Brad had padded his resume with a degree he never actually completed. An anonymous tip to Brad's HR department with documentation took care of that. No promotion. Possibly no job, depending on how seriously his company took resume fraud. Was it petty? Absolutely. Did I care? Not even a little bit. Because these people had stood by and watched while Naomi destroyed me. They'd chosen her side, spread her lies, helped her isolate me. They deserved everything they got. But the main event, the real reckoning, was still to come. Naomi and I were scheduled for a mediation session, a last-ditch attempt to settle the divorce without going to court. Patricia had advised against it. They're going to try to steamroll you, she'd warned. But I'd insisted. Because I had a plan. The mediation was held in a conference room at a neutral law office. Naomi arrived with her lawyer, David Rothstein, and her father, Edward. I arrived with Patricia and a briefcase full of documents. "Let's keep this civil," the mediator said. A tired-looking woman named Susan, who'd probably seen 1,000 divorces and believed in none of them. "We're here to reach an equitable agreement, not to litigate the marriage." "Agreed," Rothstein said smoothly. "My client is willing to be very reasonable. She's asking for 50% of all marital assets, including the house, Mr. Harper's retirement accounts, and his stock options. In exchange, she'll waive any claim to spousal support." "Generous," Patricia said dryly. "We think so." "And what does Mr. Harper get in this scenario?" "His freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing he did the right thing." I laughed. Actually laughed. Everyone turned to look at me. "Something funny, Mr. Harper?" Rothstein asked. "Yeah, actually. The idea that I'm going to roll over and give your client everything while she walks away with 0 consequences for blowing up our marriage." "Jake," Naomi said, speaking for the first time. "Don't do this. Let's just end this cleanly." "Cleanly? Like the way you cleanly slept with Liam for 6 months while lying to my face? That kind of clean?" Edward stood up. "You will not speak to my daughter that way." "Sit down, Edward. The adults are talking." His face went purple. Patricia touched my arm. A warning. I ignored it. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, opening my briefcase. "I'm going to present evidence of your daughter's affair, her financial irresponsibility, and her systematic campaign to destroy my reputation. Then, we're going to negotiate a settlement that doesn't involve me giving up everything I worked for." I started laying out documents. The screenshots of messages between Naomi and Liam, credit card statements showing thousands of dollars in charges at restaurants, hotels, and stores that I'd never been to. Bank records showing transfers from our joint account to Naomi's personal account, money she'd been siphoning off for months. And then the coup de grace, Gary's surveillance photos. Naomi and Liam together, Naomi and Ava strategizing. Receipts from the hotels where Naomi had claimed to be at work conferences, but was actually meeting her lover. Rothstein's face went from confident to concerned to outright worried as I laid out each piece of evidence. "This is all admissible," Patricia said, "and it paints a very clear picture of a wife who was not only unfaithful, but also financially deceptive. In Maine, even though we're a no-fault divorce state, the court can consider conduct when dividing assets. This conduct is pretty damning." "You bastard," Naomi whispered. "You had me followed? You cheated on me and tried to ruin my life. I documented it. There's a difference." "This is harassment," Edward roared. "No, this is evidence. And if you don't want it presented in open court where anyone can access the records, I suggest you start negotiating in good faith." The mediation lasted 4 more hours. By the end, we'd reached an agreement. I kept the house and my retirement accounts. Naomi got her car, her personal belongings, and a small cash settlement, far less than the 50% she'd been demanding. No spousal support either way. She signed the papers with shaking hands, tears running down her face. Edward looked like he wanted to murder me. Rothstein looked relieved to be done with the whole mess. As we left the conference room, Naomi grabbed my arm. "Was it worth it?" she asked. "Destroying everything, hurting all these people?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, no regret, just emptiness where she used to be. "You destroyed a spar," I said. "I just made sure you didn't profit from it." 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in Murphy's bar, nursing a beer and watching the Red Sox lose to the Yankees, when Liam Foster walked in. I recognized him immediately from Gary's photos, tall, dark-haired, handsome in that generic way that rich guys are handsome. He looked rougher than in the pictures, though. Thinner, tired, the kind of tired that comes from consequences catching up with you. He didn't see me at first. He went straight to the bar, ordered a whiskey, downed it, ordered another. Sandy served him with her usual efficiency, but I saw her glance my way. She knew who he was. I could have left. Should have left. The smart thing, the mature thing, would have been to finish my beer and walk out before he noticed me. But I'd stopped being smart and mature months ago. I walked over and sat down next to him. "Liam Foster," I said. "We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Jake Harper. You've been sleeping with my wife." He froze, glass halfway to his mouth. Then he set it down carefully and turned to look at me. "I don't want any trouble," he said. "Little late for that, don't you think? Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't know she was married at first, and then when I found out, I should have ended it, but she was beautiful and available, and you didn't care about the consequences. Yeah, I got it." I took a drink of my beer. "How's the trust fund, by the way? Heard your dad cut you off." His jaw tightened. "That's none of your business. You made my marriage your business. I think that makes your finances fair game. What do you want? You want to hit me? Go ahead. I probably deserve it." I studied him for a moment. He did look like he expected me to hit him, maybe even wanted me to, so he could feel like he'd paid some kind of price. "Nah," I said. "Hitting you would be too easy. And honestly, you're not worth the assault charge." "Then what?" "I want you to know something. Naomi, she didn't love you. She didn't even like you that much. You were just a way for her to feel powerful, to prove she could have whatever she wanted. You were a toy, Liam, and when the toy broke, she threw you away." His face went pale. "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you heard from her?" Silence. "That's what I thought." I stood up, dropped some cash on the bar for my beer. "Have a good life, Liam. Try not to wreck anyone else's marriage." I walked out of Murphy's into the cool Maine evening, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I got a call from Mick. "Dude, you need to see this," he said. "See what?" "Check Facebook, Naomi's page." I hung up and opened Facebook, something I'd been avoiding since the divorce. Naomi's page was public, and the most recent post was from last night. It was a long, rambling message about toxic relationships and learning to love yourself and moving forward from past mistakes. The kind of vague, inspirational nonsense people post when they're trying to save face. But the comments were brutal. People calling her out for the affair, for the lies, for the way she'd treated me. Even some of her old friends had turned on her, posting their own stories of how she'd used them or betrayed their trust. Ava, notably, had commented, "Funny how you're the victim now. Where was this energy when you were ruining Jake's life?" The post had been shared dozens of times. Naomi's dirty laundry was now public entertainment. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. I closed Facebook and called Patricia. "I want to make sure everything's finalized," I said. "All the paperwork, all the loose ends, I want to be done with this." "Everything's filed and processed. You're officially divorced, Mr. Harper. Congratulations, I guess." "Yeah, thanks." I hung up and sat in my house. My house now, not ours, and tried to figure out what came next. The revenge had been satisfying in the moment. Watching Naomi's world crumble, seeing Liam lose his trust fund, exposing Ava's affair, all of it had felt righteous and necessary. But now, in the quiet aftermath, I had to figure out who I was without the anger driving me. I called Mick. "Want to grab dinner?" "Always. Sarah's making pot roast, though." "You want to come over instead?" "Yeah, that sounds good." I drove to Mick and Sarah's house, a modest 2-story in a neighborhood that actually felt like a community. They had kids' toys in the yard, neighbors who waved when you drove by, the kind of normal life I'd thought I had with Naomi, but never really did. Sarah answered the door, gave me a hug that lasted a few seconds longer than usual. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually." Dinner was loud and chaotic, with Mick and Sarah's 2 kids arguing about something that happened at school and the dog begging for scraps under the table. It was messy and imperfect and real in a way my marriage had never been. After dinner, Mick and I sat on the back porch with beers while Sarah put the kids to bed. "So what now?" Mick asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you won. You got your revenge, you got your house, you got your life back. What are you going to do with it?" I thought about that. For months, my entire existence had been focused on the divorce, on making Naomi pay, on protecting myself. Now that it was over, I had no idea what came next. "I think I'm going to sell the house," I said finally. "Really?" "Yeah. Too many memories, too much baggage. I want to start fresh somewhere." "Where?" "Don't know yet. Maybe stay in Portland, just a different neighborhood. Maybe move to Bar Harbor, be near the ocean. Maybe somewhere completely different." "What about work?" "Tom's been talking about expanding the company, opening a new office in Boston. Maybe I'll take that transfer. See what it's like to live in a big city." Mick nodded slowly. "Sounds like you're really starting over." "That's the idea." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. "For what it's worth," Mick said, "I'm proud of you, man. You could have let this destroy you. Instead, you fought back. You stood up for yourself. That takes guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." He raised his beer. "To new beginnings." I clinked my bottle against his. "To new beginnings." 2 weeks later, I put the house on the market. Patricia had recommended a good real estate agent, a no-nonsense woman named Carol, who took one look at the place and said, "We'll have offers within a week." She was right. The house sold in 5 days to a young couple expecting their first kid. They walked through with wide eyes and excited voices, talking about which room would be the nursery and where they'd put the Christmas tree. I watched them and remembered being that hopeful once. It felt like a lifetime ago. While the sale was pending, I started boxing up my life. Most of the furniture I sold or donated. I didn't want any of it. Didn't want the memories attached. I kept my tools, my books, some photos from before Naomi that actually meant something. In the back of the closet, I found our wedding album. I sat on the floor and flipped through it, looking at pictures of 2 people who thought they were in love. Naomi in her dress, radiant and beautiful. Me in my tux, looking nervous and happy. Our families, our friends, everyone smiling like this was the beginning of something wonderful. I closed the album and threw it in the trash. Mrs. Tilling came over the day before I moved out, bringing cookies and unsolicited advice. "You're doing the right thing, dear," she said, settling into a folding chair, the only furniture left in the living room. "Fresh start, new place. That's what you need." "Thanks, Mrs. Tilling. I never liked her, you know. Your wife. Too much airs about her. Always thought she was better than everyone else." "You could have mentioned that before I married her." "Would you have listened?" "Probably not. I'd been too in love, too convinced that I'd found something special, too blind to see what was right in front of me." "Where are you moving to?" she asked. "Boston. Got a transfer at work, new office, new city, new everything." "Good for you, though we'll miss you around here. You were always good about helping with my garbage cans on collection day." I laughed. "That's what you'll remember me for? Garbage cans? It's the small kindnesses that matter, Jake. Remember that." She left, and I finished packing. The moving truck came the next morning. I watched them load up my life, what was left of it anyway, and felt a strange sense of relief, like I was shedding a skin I'd been wearing too long. Before I left Portland for good, I made one last stop. Murphy's bar was quiet on a Tuesday afternoon. Sandy was behind the bar prepping for the evening rush. "Jake Harper," she said when I walked in. "Heard you're leaving us. News travels fast. In this town? Always." She poured me a beer without asking. On the house, for old time's sake. I sat at the bar and looked around. This place had been my refuge during the worst of the divorce, the one spot where I could just be myself without judgment or expectations. "You did good, you know," Sandy said, wiping down the bar. "Standing up for yourself, not letting them walk all over you. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Did you break any laws?" "No." "Did you hurt anyone who didn't deserve it?" "I don't think so." "Then you didn't go too far. You just went far enough." She leaned on the bar, looked me in the eye. People like Naomi and her crowd, they're used to getting away with everything. They're used to people being too scared or too polite to call them out. You called them out. You made them face consequences. That's not going too far. That's just justice. Doesn't always feel like justice. That's because you're a good person, Jake. Good people feel guilty even when they shouldn't. Bad people never do. I finished my beer, left a generous tip, and said goodbye to Sandy and Murphy's in Portland. The drive to Boston took 2 hours. I'd found an apartment in Cambridge, a small 1-bedroom near the river. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. No shared history, no ghosts, no memories of failure. I spent the first week in Boston just walking, getting to know the city, the neighborhoods, the rhythm of a place that wasn't home yet, but might be someday. I went to Red Sox games at Fenway, ate at restaurants I'd never heard of, explored bookstores and coffee shops and parks. And slowly, gradually, I started to feel like myself again. Not the self I'd been with Naomi. That guy was gone, probably for good. But a new self, one built on the ashes of the old one. Work was good. The Boston office was bigger, busier, more challenging. I threw myself into it, working long hours, taking on projects no one else wanted. My boss, a sharp woman named Linda, noticed. "You're trying to outrun something," she said one day, catching me in the office at 8 p.m. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. Divorce? That obvious too? You've got the look. Haunted, but determined. Like you're trying to prove something to yourself. She sat down across from my desk. Take it from someone who learned the hard way. You can't work your way past pain. You have to feel it, process it, let it go. Otherwise, it just sits there, rotting. What if I don't want to feel it? Then you'll end up like me. 50 years old, successful, respected, and completely alone because you never learned how to let anyone in again. She left. I sat there for a long time, thinking about her words. That weekend I did something I hadn't done since before the divorce. I called my mom. We'd been estranged during my marriage. Naomi had never liked her, thought she was too working class, and I'd been too cowardly to fight about it. Mom had come to the wedding, but left early. We'd talked maybe twice a year after that, awkward phone calls full of long silences. "Jake?" She sounded surprised when she answered. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, Mom. Everything's fine. I wanted to call. See how you're doing." We talked for 2 hours. I told her about the divorce, about moving to Boston, about everything that had happened. She listened without judgment, without "I told you so's," even though she probably had every right to say them. "I'm proud of you," she said when I finished, "for standing up for yourself, for starting over. That takes courage. I don't feel very courageous. That's because you're in the middle of it. Courage never feels brave when you're the one being brave. It just feels like survival." "I'm sorry," I said, "for cutting you out, for choosing Naomi over you, for being a terrible son. You weren't terrible, honey. You were in love. Love makes us all a little stupid sometimes." We made plans for her to visit Boston, to actually spend time together, rebuild what I'd let Naomi destroy. After I hung up, I felt lighter. Like another piece of the old life had been properly laid to rest. 3 months into my Boston life, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Naomi. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond with anger, with all the things I'd wanted to say during the divorce but hadn't. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. Instead, I wrote, "I appreciate that. I hope you find what you're looking for." Then I blocked the number, because the thing about closure is that you don't get it from other people. You make it yourself. And I'd already made mine. Plopworig. The final confrontation. 6 months after moving to Boston, I got a call from Mick. "You need to come back to Portland," he said. "Just for one night. Trust me." "What's going on?" "Just come. I'll explain when you get here." I drove up on a Saturday, met Mick at Murphy's. The bar was packed, some kind of reunion event for people from our old social circle. I saw familiar faces, people I hadn't seen since before the divorce. "Why am I here?" I asked Mick. "Because they're all here. Naomi, Liam, Ava, all of them. And they've been talking, spreading new lies, saying you're the one who ruined everything, that you were abusive, that you faked evidence." "Let them talk." "No, You're going to face them, one last time, end this for good. I wanted to leave. Wanted to get back in my car and drive back to Boston and never think about these people again. But Mick was right. I needed to face them. One last time. I walked into the back room where the reunion was happening. The conversation died when people saw me. Naomi was there, looking thinner and older than I remembered. Liam was next to her. They were apparently back together, which was either romantic or pathetic, depending on your perspective. Ava was in the corner with a guy I didn't recognize, probably her new boyfriend. "Jake," Naomi said, her voice uncertain. "I didn't think you'd come." "Neither did I." I looked around the room. "But I heard you've all been talking about me. Thought I'd give you a chance to say it to my face." "We're not talking about you," Ava said, but her voice wavered. "Really? Because I heard different. I heard you've been telling people I was abusive, that I faked evidence, that I'm the reason your life fell apart." "You did ruin my life," Naomi said, her voice rising. "You had me followed. You exposed my private life. You turned everyone against me. I documented your affair. You turned everyone against you by having the affair in the first place." "It wasn't just an affair," she was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. "It was me trying to find something real, something that made me happy, because you never did. Then you should have divorced me first. Instead, you lied, you cheated, you tried to take everything I had. You made me the villain in your story so you could be the victim." Liam stood up. "You need to leave. You're upsetting her." "I'm upsetting her? That's rich." I turned to face him. "How's the trust fund, Liam? Still cut off? Still driving that Honda?" His face went red. "You're an asshole." "Yeah, probably. But I'm an honest asshole, which is more than I can say for anyone in this room." I looked around at all of them, the people who'd been my friends, my wife, the life I'd left behind. "You all made your choices," I said. "You chose to lie, to cheat, to betray. And when I called you out on it, when I refused to just roll over and take it, you decided I was the problem. Well, guess what? I don't care anymore. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if you think I'm the villain, because I know the truth. And more importantly, I'm free of all of you." I turned to leave. Naomi called after me. "Jake, wait. Please. Can we just talk? Really talk?" I stopped, turned back. "What's there to talk about, Naomi? I need you to know that I did love you. Once, in the beginning, it was real. Maybe it was. But it wasn't enough. And that's okay. We weren't right for each other. We probably never were. Do you hate me?" I thought about that. Did I hate her? For a long time, I had. But standing there, looking at her, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, no anger. Just emptiness where she used to be. "No," I said finally. "I don't hate you. I don't feel anything about you at all. And that's how I know I'm finally over this." I walked out of Murphy's for the last time. Mick followed me. "Feel better?" he asked. "Yeah, actually, I do." We stood in the parking lot, looking up at the stars. It was a clear night, cold and crisp, the kind of night that makes you feel alive. "You're not the villain," Mick said. "You know that, right?" "I know. But even if I was, I'd be okay with it. Because at least I stood up for myself. At least I fought back. That's all any of us can do." I drove back to Boston that night, and I never went back to Portland again. Not for reunions, not for nostalgia, not for closure. Because I'd already found my closure. I'd found it in walking away. 6 months later, I met someone. Her name was Rachel. She was a teacher, funny and kind, and completely unimpressed by the drama of my past. We took things slow, built something real, something based on honesty and respect and actual love. A year after that, we moved in together. Not into my apartment, not into hers, but into a new place we chose together. A fresh start for both of us. And sometimes, late at night, I'd think about Naomi and wonder if she ever found what she was looking for. If Liam made her happy. If she ever regretted the choices she made. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. Because I'd learned the most important lesson. The best revenge isn't destroying someone else's life. It's building a better one for yourself. And that's exactly what I did.